Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Is out of home still relevant in the United States? To find out more, stay tuned.
Modern Expo provides an integral ecosystem of screen-operated lockers, screenless autonomous solutions, refrigerated lockers, and even personal parcel lockers, powered by in-house developed software.
Hey Gary, I know that you've just come back from the US, partly because I called you quite stupidly one morning and woke you up at 6 a.m. But tell me, what's the news? What did you see that's interesting?
We saw a huge amount, actually, Marek. We were out to meet with carrier partners, and we were out to also to meet with potential locker locations. So I think the market out there is definitely waking up to out of home. You know, you hear a lot of people say that it's not an out of home market, and I think up to this point, that's pretty true. But things are definitely taking shape out there.
Well, that's really interesting because I've heard exactly the same story. You know, we in America want to get things delivered. So tell me then, where did you see the change? What's happening?
I think the drive is coming in multiple directions. We're seeing governmental organisations that are getting on the green agenda, understanding that the way that everything has continued is not sustainable, and are looking at taking vehicles off the streets and looking at more consolidation. You know, we're definitely seeing organisations, you know, including governmental organisations, starting to pay interest. We're also seeing that the carriers are really starting to feel the pain of porch piracy. Huge amounts of theft for parcels being left unattended, and it's almost becoming like an industry of stealing them.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, that's something that I remember because I spent a year almost in Seattle, and I remember that issue. But tell me something, and I know you're a lot more upbeat than I am about what I would call the legacy carriers. Are they really changing enough? Because up until now, I've got the feeling that they've sorted their capacity problems by basically putting peak surcharges and other things in, to try and get the volume down and make more money. But do you think things are changing?
We definitely get the feeling that they are. I mean, from the direct conversations that we're having with at least one or two of them, they definitely are. I mean, the USPS have announced a trial of lockers for pickup. They're going to put lockers into the post offices for people to come and collect their parcels from the lockers. That's to try and relieve some of the sort of labour cost across the counter and improve some quality. We've seen other carriers that have kind of played with their own network of lockers, but as we always agree, that's not the way to do it. The economics are really tough if you try and go it alone, even if you've got the financial muscle of a 22 billion parcel a year market like the US. It's still a really tough call. And we definitely see movement towards a sort of more open, more collaborative approach. Without talking about my main gig, there's definitely organisations out there that are getting a foothold.
Well, I think, you know, that would be really encouraging because from my perspective, and, you know, as I said, I spent a year out there. There's not much you can teach the major American players, certainly Amazon, about fulfillment centers. But last mile, wow, I think that's an area where there's a lot that could change.
Well, I also think it's first mile. You know, persuading people not to have home delivery, weaning them off the parcel handed to them onto the doorstep. It's extremely difficult if that's what you're used to. But getting stuff into the network, of course, that's a mixture of returns. Returns is a massive issue in the States. You know, something like $160 billion worth of goods are returned. E-commerce in the States hit $1 trillion this year for the first time. It's a figure that's impossible to say without me sounding like Austin Powers. You know, 160 billion. So it's a massive problem. And people are driving around with them on the back seat of their cars, wondering how they can, in their busy day, get them into the networks to get them returned. And queuing up in the post office for 40 minutes or hunting down some of the access points and so on are in stores that we would regard as unusual. They're in auto centres, they're in Michael's, which is like a craft store. They're not places everybody would normally go. So if you can make it really hyper convenient for people to drop stuff off, I think then you'll see the flow switching into lockers and other routes back into retailers.
Do you know what? It's interesting you say that because, and this, by the way, is going to be a topic for another video cast because we've been doing quite a lot of work in Latin America. And it's exactly as you said, first mile is the big thing. So, sorry, quote, relatively big thing because there's a long way to go. But
Yeah.
the sort of thing, first of all, returns, but also small merchants who maybe have 1 or 2 shipments per day, who, cannot financially warrant having a courier come and pick up the stuff. If they have a convenient, proximate place where they can easily drop off the parcels, wow, that's a dream for them.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing we're really interested in is parcel lockers are in themselves not new in the US. Quadient's biggest installation is 10,000 multifamily buildings, apartment buildings, with locker banks in the lobby. Now, at the moment, those are used just for delivery. Now, imagine a world where you could have your parcels delivered directly into the locker in the bottom of your apartment building, and when you have got a return to do, you go back to the same locker bank and drop something off, and you know that the next time the delivery guy comes in, he's going to deliver your next purchase and then pick up whatever you return from the old one. So we think there's a whole infrastructure there, almost waiting to go, if you like.
But I think the one, that I've never been a big fan of residential lockers because of access, particularly if it's a gated community. But actually, I can't remember who it was, but I came across someone who's got a really good app whereby actually the courier gets a one-off code so that access doesn't become an issue. Because I would imagine that a lot of these residential lockers are behind pass-controlled doors or gates.
Yeah, they are, but that problem's already been solved. So there's all of the delivery companies are already going to these apartment buildings every day, and they've already got sorted out access. So there are door tags and codes and stuff to get in. The problem is that once they're in there, this building might be 50 stories high. How do I deliver 50, 100 packages a day in a secure and robust way? So you've either got to pay somebody to sit in an office all day and take them in, which is very expensive and very time consuming. So the lockers are really, really familiar to a big slice of the American population. They're just not public yet, and that's the change that I think is coming very soon.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's got to change because we every year, and this is probably going to be a topic for another video cast, which is peak. Every year we see things becoming mayhem in North America, particularly the US. We see these peak surcharges. We see headlines, oh, this many millions of parcels haven't been delivered pre-Christmas. So out of home must be the solution. Let's see if they actually grasp the nettle and actually make a move to change things.
Well, I really hope so. We're seeing evidence in Canada as well. So we've already got one carrier in Canada that's started to develop their own network of lockers. They're placing them at their own retail customer centres, and they've got phenomenal volume going through them, Marek. One of them, they said they use it for staging parcels for collection that have failed delivery. They're filling and emptying and refilling that locker up to 6 times a day during peak, where people are choosing this kind of curbside pickup approach.
Well, I think actually Canada could be one for another discussion as well. So, you know what, I think for today we've probably covered everything. Looking forward to talking about peak. And I think we can keep Canada for a new topic because I think in itself it's a pretty interesting market.
Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.